What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Rewind Recap Relive, where legends and rising stars meet. I'm your host, Jonah, and what an episode we have in store for you today with WWE Hall of Famer, the Godfather and Dashing D000. But first, let's get into the giveaway winner of last week, next week's giveaway, and next week's episode. First, the winner of last week's giveaway being the signed, beautiful poster by Godfather and Papa Shango is LMW Wrestling. Congratulations, you guys are the winner, and we will be in touch. Now, next week on the show, we have two incredible talents coming at you, being the former 3MB member Heath Slater, now known as Heath in Impact Wrestling, and rising star Ryan Clancy. You have the chance to win a signed 8x10 by Heath himself. All you have to do is comment hashtag R3giveaway down below in this video. That's hashtag R3giveaway in the full Godfather and Dashing D000 interview, and you will be entered to win that incredible 8x10. Now that that's all taken care of, all you guys have to do is please subscribe to the channel. Tons of great content on the way in the coming weeks, so keep your eyes open for that. Like the video, share it around, comment down below, even if it's not to enter the giveaway. We always love to hear from you. But most of all, please enjoy the interview. So our first guest has 8 years experience in the wrestling world. He's done a lot of work with his stable, The Congregation, but plans on branching out in the future for a singles role. Please welcome the Brooklyn Wrestling Prince, Dashing D000, formerly known as Weatherford.
Hello, everybody.
And our next guest is one of the most entertaining, engaging, and captivating performers in sports entertainment history. He's a legend and, of course, a WWE Hall of Famer. Please welcome the one and only Godfather.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How's everybody's day going?
Pretty good. And it's great to have you both here. And I always like to start it off with something real basic and just understand how it is you got into the wrestling business in the first place. Dashing, can you go first and tell us about the start of your journey?
It's been a fun, to me, I always think it's been a fun story. Been a fan for a long time, ever since a kid growing up. And I always felt you can only be a true fan of something, but for so long before you want to get involved. And I started looking for schools back in like early 2000. And about the time I was really looking at schools, it was mostly it was Gleason's and it was Hogg, main schools that were in the New York area. And I kept looking for the money to get it put together. And what happened was a friend of mine was working with a promotion in Jersey that was running out of what's called Ace Pro Wrestling. And They were running a small organization within that wrestling realm, and it was connected with through them that they got in contact with Joel Maximo. And Joel Maximo was just opening up his school, the Ludus, over in Brooklyn. And when he put that together, he eventually was doing like this advertisement for like a real low cost buy-in for the first month. I took advantage right away as soon as I found out, and just took off ever since there and haven't looked back.
That's great. That's a really great story of getting started in Godfather. Can you now please take the floor and tell us your first step into your legendary career?
Well, unlike my man Dash there, I like that name, Dashing D000. That's a cool name.
Thank you.
I was not a wrestling fan.
Okay.
I, being older from the Bay Area, was a roller derby fan. And what a lot of people might not know is at one point, roller derby was a lot bigger than wrestling, especially in the Bay Area. And we were more roller derby fans. That could also be because we were, we knew the local people. But they were filming a movie called Over the Top, the arm wrestling movie with Sylvester Stallone.
Right, yeah. I love that movie.
I was a bartender at a topless club. And a lot of those guys were, they weren't main eventers, but there were a lot of guys that were wrestlers that part-time wrestling did. I think Scott Norton was in it. Anyway, a lot of these guys would come to my bar where I was the bartender, and they're like, dude, you should get into wrestling. Just natural, the way you look. And I mean, I was just a beast back then. Yeah. But I was more of a biker, tattooed biker dude, working in a strip club, bouncing people around, being the bartender. But I was curious, so I made some calls. I went to a wrestling school.
Right.
I was literally there. I was literally in wrestling school maybe a month or two, and Jerry Lawler seen me, and he put me right to work, man. And from that point on, I've been things took off quick. I think because I was a different look at the time, but
Yeah.
things took off quick for me. And once they started rolling, man, they kept rolling.
And you were brought into the WWEF by the Undertaker. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know if I was bought in by the Undertaker, but
Or did you know him beforehand?
Who? Taker?
Yeah.
I met Undertaker in 1988.
Okay.
That's when I just got into the business, 88, 89. I had ran a program with Jerry Lawler. Jerry Lawler was my first opponent ever. And I mean, ever. Dude, all I knew how to do was punch, kick, and the lock up. That's all I knew when I went to Jerry. And I start working with him. Well, at my very first match was a Monday night in Memphis. And that's, if you're in the wrestling history, that's a really big deal. I beat Jerry in the middle, 1, 2, 3, my very first match. Wow. After that program was over, they're like, we're going to bring this tall, redheaded kid in to work against you. He's pretty green too, but he's not as green as you. And so that was Taker. We had a match together, and it was so shitty that they ended up putting us together. They made us a tag team, and we were called Death Express.
Okay.
We became very, very good friends to this day. We are still very good friends. I'm sure his endorsement helped me, but I had a tryout. They just didn't bring me in. I got a tryout as I was in Phoenix, and at the time Charles Barkley was playing for the basketball team.
Yeah.
And they wanted to put heat on me, so they called me Sir Charles. And then after my match, Vince basically says, "You're hired. I want you to go home. We're gonna put you on payroll. I want you to go home, keep training." He goes, "I've got to come up with something for you." He says, "You have a baby face." He says, "You have a body of a monster." He says, "But you have a baby face." He goes, "I got to do something with that face." And that's what they came up with, Papa Shango. That's why I came out as a painted character, is because I had a baby face. But like I'm 59 years old today, and when you look at most guys 59, I still look a lot younger. So I'll take that.
You definitely do. You still have the same face. And I definitely want to get into Papa Shango, but I'll go to Dashing first. As I mentioned earlier, you were formerly known as Weatherford, right? Can you tell us about that name change, when in your career, and why it transpired? Was it kind of like a strategic play on your part?
Oh, very much so. I originally came up with the character Dashing D Weatherford, and I was running around with it. It started to catch on. But then I started thinking, like, Weatherford, even though it had the same good clout that I wanted to have the character to have, it wasn't the identity that was really me. It wasn't an identity that I felt was properly even marketable or something that I can coin. So I decided to play with it. And lo and behold, 1000 is actually a shoot last name for my father. And that was the way to actually incorporate that into the gimmick and also give me more rights to the character, moving forward for marketability, state, branding, and that nature. So over time, I waited for an opportunity for my character to really just evolve and rebrand. And about, I want to say maybe about a year, about a year ago, that's when I decided it was time to just transform the character into something a little bit more directly in tune with me, along with making sure that it's something that I can continue to capitalize on further, and a name that's just going to stick, that you'll be able to just hear right away and be like, "Oh man, that's cool." And, I ran with it, I cashed it in, and again, one of them things, I'm not looking back on it. I've been blessed to get there with it, and love to see it catch on.
Absolutely. And Godfather, getting back into Papa Shango, when they gave you that, so you told us how that came about, Vince. Did you think that was going to stick? How did you feel about the character when they gave it to you?
Um, like I said, I wasn't a wrestling fan, so I wasn't really smart to the game at all. I didn't know if wrestling was real or not when I got into it, and it was real, it was cool. If it wasn't, it was cool with me. So, man, I was at a point. It's hard. It's not hard to answer that question, but you have to understand who I was at the time. I mean, I was this big black biker, and I listened to country music. Okay, to this day, I still listen to country music. I love old country music, but I took it as like a job, as a role, and I tried to do the best I could. I was so far away from being whatever a voodoo guy was that I just tried my best, and I took a lot of advice. But I just rode with it. Whatever gimmick that I was, and you see all the ones in the back, I just tried my best at it. If it worked, it worked. The thing about me is wrestling, for me, I love the business, have respect for the business, made money in the business, nothing but love and respect, okay? But it was my second job. It was never my first. My first job was I was a part owner of a topless club in Vegas, and it just sold Cheetahs. It just sold about a couple of years ago. But that I always had that. So I always had a means of income coming in. So it wasn't about the money. It was about me being at the time with crazy people that were just as crazy as me and having a good time. And I was getting paid to do it. So you could have made me a voodoo man, and that didn't matter, man. I was having fun, and I was meeting people. And I don't know if the guys are crazy today like they used to be. You probably can't be because of social media. But there was no social media when we were doing our thing. But, the road was fun. It was fun. I know you hear all about all the bad things about wrestling, but there's a lot of good things too, man. And it was a great part of my life.
It's amazing to hear that, because so many people, not to say you didn't, I guess it rolled off your back, right? Whatever they made you, it just rolled off your back. A lot of people are strict about it.
The thing with me, and to this day, I'm good friends with Vince McMahon, but I never forgot that he's not your friend, he's your boss, but he's a cool boss. And so to this day, I have a great relationship with him. But it's just, man, it was different because they're paying you good money. I just do what they tell me to do and do the best I could. I wasn't there to argue with them. I wasn't there to fight. If something didn't seem right to me, I might not do it. But dude, I was having so much fun. It was. I still have a lot of fun, but I was having so much fun. It didn't matter. And when I was Godfather, I know I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but at one point, Vince told me, "You ought to be paying me for me to let you do what you're doing out there." And I told him, "Maybe I will. Let me keep doing it."
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah,
that's fun. That's why you would see me come and go, because if I wasn't enjoying myself, I had another way of making money. I didn't. It was cool that this extra money's coming in, but I had another way to make money. So I'm like, dude, I'm not having fun, so I gotta go. And that's why you'd see me come and go, is because I wasn't happy. And then they would call me and ask if I'd want to come back, and I'd be like, nah, not really. And they'd say, well, we're going to do this thing off of the UFC, and we're going to call you Kama. And I'm like, nah, not really. And they're like, well, we're going to let you ride a harp. Don't forget, I was a biker. And I'm like, oh, you'll let me ride a harp? Okay, I'll do it. I mean, that's how it was.
That's amazing. Dashing, did you have something to say?
I'm just literally shocked hearing all of this because I look back at your time as Papa Shango, and I was watching that growing up, and literally you scared me. That was one of the first gimmicks outside of the Undertaker that had me like, no, I don't. This character is. You did such a good job with it. Like I legit used to have nightmares. Like
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just like, I think back to the feud with you and Ultimate
Ultimate
Warrior and the whole
Warrior,
promos
yeah.
and things that led up to that. Man, I watched it and I was uncomfortable when I saw your character come out afterwards.
It was something, man, and it's people that are in their mid-30s now. You know, they were all kids when I was doing that, so it's funny to talk to them now because they're like, dude, you have no idea how afraid I was of you when I was a kid, because I was literally, no pun intended, but I was literally the kid's boogeyman, the real boogeyman to a lot of people that are 35, 38, 40 years old now. They were kids then. And so, but I was just trying to do the best I could, man. That's all I was doing.
You really did,
Papa
yeah.
Shango, believe me.
You took it and ran with it. What do you think of the because there's obviously critics with everything, but I personally think that the character, when you look at what's happening right now, especially, was really ahead of its time. What do you think about those critics of Papa Shango?
To be honest, I don't care about what critics have to say about anything, but you know, it is what it is. I did the best I could. You either liked it or you didn't like it. And to be honest, it's cool if you liked it, but if you didn't, I could care less.
Yeah.
I did the best I could. I wasn't no voodoo man. I was green. Well, you know, I was in the business for a minute, but you know, I did the best I could to be somebody to hand you a gimmick that you become a voodoo man. And we did the best we could with it.
Yeah.
So when
no,
people say, I believe me, all my life, man, I've been so different all my life than everybody else. That I mean, when I got tattooed, I've been tattooed since the 80s. There was no black people tattooed in the 80s. They had, if they did, they had a brand from college or something. Maybe maybe I think Iverson had one when he started. But dude, I've always been so different that I could care less what people say. Or I don't care.
Right. I think,
don't.
that's the best mentality to really have. It's how you stay young, really, right?
And the bottom line is, I did the best I could. I didn't go in there half-step on even the Goodfather. I hated that. You have no idea how much I hated.
I know. I want to talk about the Goodfather for sure, because it's a weird dynamic. Yeah.
I always gave it the best I could.
Yeah. No, you definitely did. And one more Papa Shango question. Is it true that, so you were thrust into the main event scene pretty quickly with that feud with the Ultimate Warrior, and at WrestleMania 8, you were supposed to make your debut or at least interrupt Hulk Hogan and Sid Vicious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you miss your cue, or is that a rumor?
What happened was, basically, I wasn't told. I was told, don't leave until we. There was the gorilla station, and they said, don't leave until we tell you to go. And so I'm sitting there. I'm not watching the monitor or anything. I'm just waiting for them to say go. I'm gonna take off running. It's a long run, and then all of a sudden, it's like, oh shit, go, 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 and I took off. So I got the cue to go a little late. Looking back, they probably told me not to go because I was green and it was a big moment. But looking back at it, I wish they would have let me pick the time to go, because I wasn't even looking at the monitor. I'm literally like the track person. Like
I could picture it. Yeah,
I'm going, baby. I'm running because it was a long run. And you know what? The thing is I never ever heard about that from anybody in the WWF at the time. Nobody, not even Taker. Nobody. And I didn't hear about it till like after, and I'm doing the autograph signing things, and people are asking me, and I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, well, you were late. I'm like, because all I know is when I got there, I was supposed to do what I was supposed to do. That's all I knew. I didn't know anything else. I knew that I was supposed to do what I was supposed to do. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And the reason that I never heard about it, because it wasn't my fault. And the person, I'm not even saying his fault it was, but the person that was said, hey, it wasn't him, it was me. I sent him late. So I never even heard about it. Isn't that wild? Yeah.
Yeah, that's really crazy.
That's the internet for you.
Yeah.
True
Dashing. Story. Tell us how the difference Dashing is between Weatherford and Dashing D. how do they differ? And tell us who Dashing D really is. Explain that persona the best you can.
Well, Dashing D is he's a comparatively he believes he's the upper echelon of just about everything, but it's not something that he necessarily puts himself on a pedestal. He believes he was blessed to be there. He was transformed into that and forged into it. And with all of those talents that he brings to the table, it just makes him better than everybody he steps in the ring with. He's 1,000 levels above the rest, any way you put it. Now, Weatherford was just an upper class gentleman, someone of money, had like a good inheritance. You can consider him like a trust fund kid. But 1,000 was someone who realized what he was with his role, his potential, and the talent he brings to the table. And from there on, I get in the ring, you get to see the intensity between Dashing D000 and what he brings and how sure he is of himself versus Weatherford is miles different. Weatherford just believed because he was in the ring, he can work and he can win, or he can pay you off to win. 1,000's not about that. 1,000 believes he's going to win because he's just that much better and he's that much good and he's been blessed to do it.
I gotcha. Godfather, I know you said at first, you were just trying your best, but after years in the business, do you have any thought on that? How important do you think it is to know your character?
Well, The Godfather, take that. I mean, that was me being me, knowing me. So it worked the best and it got over the best because I knew me. So, yeah, I mean, you really need to know the character, but I did it's not like I just put that shit on and went out there. I mean, I spent time in, New Orleans. We would talk to some voodoo people. I had books, the spells, the symbols, and the spells and the old boy and everything I was saying was legit. And the spells that I were casting were legit spells. And I have a book, I have this book now, a book of spells. So everything I was doing was legit.
Oh,
it
that's
wasn't
great.
So I should have said that, but I mean, it was, I just didn't go out there all willy-nilly, as some of my friends say. I really, I put a lot of time into it. I really got to know it as much as I could, being who I was. If that makes sense.
No, it does. Oh, that's great. I had no clue the work that really went into that, but it makes sense.
I sit down the name because we did when I met Vince in his office for the first time over the gimmick, we came up with the name right then, and he had these books and these names, and so I said, I like this, and the correct pronunciation of it is Shango. But I thought Shango sounded country, and I didn't want to say Shango. It sounded too country to me. So I pronounced it Shango because I made it a little deeper. So Shango was actually the keeper of the grave. He's a real person, and he's in the movie Live and Let Die, where they took the character from. He's called Baron Samedi or Baron Samadai.
Right.
We changed his name to Shango, who is still Baron Samadai or Samedi, whichever way you say it. And then we were looking at surnames and this and that, and it was Papa. And I'm like, what about Papa Shango? And Vince goes, you got it. I like that. Papa Shango. Papa Shango. And Vince starts going, Papa Shango. He goes, I like that. That's where we got it.
That's amazing. I love that story. Dashing, can you tell us about the trepidation or the nerves that come over when you're first stepping through that curtain, if you had any?
Oh, I mean, I still get them. There's no way to explain that rush. There's no way to explain, whether it's 15 people, 1,500 people. I think you get the same rush just going out there, knowing that you're trying to perform, knowing that there's people, there's some guys that's out there, they're just there to criticize, they're there to look at wrestling, not necessarily as fans, but it's what they just decide to do with their Saturday night. And, they're looking to troll you. And one thing that I like about wrestling business that, some people would like to call it make believe, but see, that's for me, that's something different. That make-believe part is something I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to make you believe. So when I get out there, that's my job. I got to make you believe that this contest is about the realest contest that you're going to see. And when I get in there, that's what I want to do. I want to, I'm glad we're actually here with Godfather, because I remember your Kama Mustafa gimmick and the Supreme Fighting Machine. That meant something to me growing up, because you grew up as a kid watching wrestling, and people, first thing they wanted to say, it ain't real, it ain't real. That character got in there, he's throwing punches, kicks, haymakers, and things like that. And it looked more like a UFC fighter than anything else before UFC was that cool. And it made people believe. And I used to be able to show that character and be like, look, yeah, you think you can get in there and handle that? And one thing that I noticed with respect to the business is a lot of people don't always, appreciate what it is we do. And I want to go out there a lot of times and make that happen. So, yeah, it's a level of pressure, it's excitement, and it's also just motivation. So those nerves hit me the moment I'm stepping before there, and I'm just waiting. Sometimes, I'm going through different exercises to get myself ready, or I'm saying affirmations to just know what I'm going to do. But overall, yeah, it's there every single time. But I live for it at this point.
Oh, that's great. Godfather, any thoughts on that, or how to really get past those or get used to them, maybe?
Like I said, man, my life's been so crazy. It's so exciting. I started off a basketball player. I played basketball in high school. In 1979, I was second team All-American. In 1979, I was Mid-Peninsula Basketball Player of the Year in California. And that's Northern California. I was a basketball player, but I wanted to play football. Long story short, I got a basketball scholarship. I started lifting weights. I graduated school at 190. I put on a little weight. The weights are really going good. A coach from Reno sees me. He says, actually a coach from where I was playing ball at went to Reno, Coach Hall. They told him about me. I go there. They put a basketball in my hand. Now I'm like 275, pitching 400 pounds.
Wow.
And I'm dunking a basketball. So they gave me a full ride scholarship to rodeo. I have done so much to fighting, dude, I've done so much crazy, from riding with the Hells Angels. I've done so much crazy stuff in my life that I don't know if I get nervous. I just want to get out there and have fun. I'm so used to so many different situations in life where I'm the only black dude at a Hank Williams Jr. concert. I'm the only black dude at this. I'm the only this, I'm this, I'm here, I'm there. For me, it was always fun. There was a couple matches. I had a couple matches against Taker, and I think I was only nervous because I didn't want to let him down. And I'd probably been drinking all night, like always. I had a couple matches where I'm like, they were big matches, probably casket matches. And so I was nervous to go out there, but as soon as I got out there and locked up with him, like he says, man, your nerves go away. But for me, it was always, I just wanted to. People always say, my mom and people always say, you've always been a performer. You've always loved performing. So to this day, man, I have no problem getting in front of people. You could drop me off at the WWE Center now, put a microphone in my hand and say entertaining for 15 minutes, and I would do it. And I would just be myself. And I think that's why it's easier, because I'm just being myself.
Yeah. No, that's only natural that you'd end up in the sports entertaining world after all that. That's an incredible life. It really is. And it's still going. It's still, trudging along. Dashing, can you tell us about Omega Black and the forming of your stable, the Congregation? And then also, what does Dashing D feel about being in a stable? Why does he want to branch out?
That's a really good question. So Omega Black is a funny story. Omega Black is very similar to one of those kind of like how Godfather talked about the Vince situation.
Yeah.
Omega Black was not originally what I set out to do with the gimmick or anything. It was while paired in the school, they were at the Ludus. There was an idea of forget it was one of the other wrestlers, Greg Jones,
Okay.
was the character that was there, and he decided he wanted to form a stable, and it was very much fashion, high society, Black African American, almost like a fraternity, a super fraternity.
Gotcha.
When I saw it, I was like, all right, it's pretty good. And one of the things that, Prince has been a big influence in my wrestling career. So one of the early promos I did was about Black Sweat, which was one of Prince's songs. And that's what kind of really got me through the door to start putting me on shows. So Joel wanted to put me on the shows, but he wanted to pretty much group me right so that we would make not only Omega Black marketable, but make myself marketable. So I wind up with them. And when I got into it, I was like, all right, we're doing an indie version of Nation of Domination. And that wasn't it. So we formulated it, and it became something to just have a stepping stone, something to play with and get more familiar with the character as well. Dashing D was able to fit in because it was high society life. It was, when we talked about problems, it was rich people's problems. One of my favorite promos that we ever cut was, we have a problem sometimes picking up our family because we all drive Corvette. You can't really pick up an entire family if you're running around in two-door sports cars.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
That was the Omega Black type of problems. And it was really fun to put a black face on that type of character.
Right.
That wasn't a narrative that was necessarily being done everywhere. And
would you compare it to kind of like Ric Flair? Is that like Ric Flair-esque?
Limousine riding, jet flying.
Exactly.
It was definitely along those lines. And that was, like I said, it was a different narrative to put that spin on with, a more diverse face. And, being someone of, of African American descent and identifying myself as such, but not just doing it, but to control that narrative in a different way. I'm usually the oddball in a lot of situations. What I like in wrestling in general, sometimes you're a double minority, being a Black person in sports entertainment, depending on what scene you're in. And to do it in a way where now we're Ric Flair-like characters was really cool. So you put that out there. Omega Black eventually evolved into something more. We just became pillars of success. In another reincarnation. And I was the loudmouth kind of business tycoon, the everyone's favorite manager. So that's where it worked for me as well. And but there was something more from my character there, and the congregation came along to just focus more on tag team. And but Dashing D I feel he's an entity. He's an entity that is beyond just the groups you put him in. I'm a one-man show that I can get out there no matter what situation you put me into. I'm adaptable, I'm flexible, but I'm entertaining you all the way. Whether it's just talking on the mic, talking to some of the ladies in the front row, giving out the roses, poses, anything that's going to go on, I'm going to make it work. And that's why it's like I crave the spotlight. The spotlight, I don't necessarily crave the spotlight as much as the spotlight craves me. So in a group, I don't serve always the best in a group because the spotlight's going to be on me, and now I'm going to shadow my partner. I'm not doing them that great of a service that way now, am I?
No.
So it's important to be able to branch out from that. If I'm going to be that character and bring all that charisma, it's going to have to either someone matches it, or, you got to let me fly.
Right. It's a really interesting take for sure. And Godfather, so after the shoot fighter, and you were riding a Harley, you said. Then you came back as Mustafa, right? Part of the Nation of Domination.
Yeah.
So can you tell us, it's such a legendary group. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe what we didn't see, like the formation? Like, how did that come about? Kind of like how Shango came about. How did that go about backstage, forming the Nation?
I didn't find out that I was going to be in the Nation of Domination till I got to TV that day. And when I got to TV, they were bringing back Papa Shango. And so they had come up with a whole new, I got good shape. They had a new look, it was pretty cool. Jerry Lawler, there's pictures on the internet. I don't even have one, but there's pictures on the internet of his face that he painted. And I came there like, hey, Vince wants to talk to you. So I'm like, all right, cool. And talk to Vince. Vince basically says, Charles, change your plans. He says, we're going to put you in the Nation of Domination. We're going to call you Kama Mustafa. You and Ron Simmons are going to wrestle Undertaker in a handicap match, and you're going to go over on Undertaker. And I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah, that's amazing. It must be surreal, right?
I mean, like you said about rolling with shit, because I look at it like this. They're paying you, and they're paying you good to do a job. So, okay. Are you going to keep paying me what you said you're going to pay me? Okay. And so I met Ron Simmons for the first time that night. I knew who he was, of course. I followed his football. But I've never met him. And then I met him that night. We talked, and we ran over things. And to this day, me and Ron are good friends ever since that day. I talked to Ron yesterday. So
that's
it was
awesome.
a great group to be part of. I remember when Vince came to, he called me and Ron into the office. He's like, hey, he goes, do you guys know who Dwayne Johnson is? And I didn't know who he was. And Ron's like, yeah, man, yeah. He goes, well, listen, I'm going to do this. I'm going to bring him in. I'm going to do this with the Nation. He laid out the whole thing that he was going to do. And he said, once I get people to hate this kid, he said, he's going to be the biggest thing wrestling's ever seen. And that's
so
what
he
Vince
knew.
Ron.
Wow.
And so we went and talked to Dwayne. You know, at that time, he's just Rocky Maivia or whatever his name was.
Yeah.
You know, so we went and talked to him, and because Vince kind of laid out what he was doing, so we do. And we're like, you down with this? Because at first he didn't want to wear the colors and shit. They're like, no, Rocky, you're going to wear the colors somewhere. Because he didn't want to wear the colors. He wanted to just have his stuff. He didn't want to wear the little, whatever the colors were.
I got you. Yeah, the green and yellow, I think, right?
I think he had a little piece on his shorts. Because we're like, no, you're going to wear something. You're going to wear something. And then we all wore the hats, and he refused to wear the hat. He just refused to wear the hat. But that was such a cool thing, man. And looking back at it, another thing, like I said, I was just doing my job. Rod was a good friend of mine at that time. I'm hanging out with him at nighttime. D'Lo and Rocky kind of did their own thing until they brought Mark Henry in, and the three of them kind of did their own thing. But dude, bunch of great guys. To this day, I never knew the significance of it until now, how important it was at the time. Because
it really was.
Doing my thing, and it was just my job. But you look back at it now, you're like, wow, that was pretty powerful. And you had some powerful guys in that group at one time, and it was a pretty strong message to people that don't know what's going on. And I look back at it now, I'm like, whoo, that was crazy. People hated us.
Right.
I mean, people hated us. And today, I think if you did a Nation, I think they would be basically baby faces.
Right. Yeah. No, you're definitely right about. Go on.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say what's funny is because of that, it has sparked a lot, and it's funny because I saw a lot of the Nations of Domination work, and it made me want to get more into wrestling. from that aspect and what you guys were doing. And ironically, not to have a full mark out moment, but there's been a little sub quest for me in wrestling where I need to meet every member of the nation and speak with them. And so far, you're number 3. So I've
He's on a mission.
Yeah. So yeah. Ron,
the Rock might be kind of hard. I don't know if you met him yet.
Yeah. Everyone, that's what everyone has said so far too. D-Lo, Ron, and yourself. That's like every time I keep saying I'm gonna get to all 4 of you, they're like, the Rock is probably gonna be the one you're not gonna get. And I was like, no, I'm not giving up.
It might get hard to get to now.
I've seen people wait outside at like 4 a.m. out of his movie tapings or whatever just to get a quick hello, on his. Maybe you could be one of those people. But
no, I refuse. I'm still Dashing D.
He's a good dude. He's a really good dude. And for somebody to have that much success and fortune, God bless him, man, because he's a good dude. He's not a piece of shit. He's a good dude. And he actually cares about people. And he's, it's good to see that type of success happen to such a good person. Even though he ain't never put me in a movie or anything.
Well, just wait. You look good for 59. Just wait. but
no, but he's I always tell people, man, he was a good guy. He took himself out of the car with him. At first, Vince wanted us, me, D-Lo, Ron, and him. He wanted us all to ride together. And so we're all right. So we rode together. And then one day, Rocky said, "Hey, man," he says, I can't ride with you no more. What do you mean you can't ride with me no more? He's like, I can't be in the car with you no more. I'm like, why? He goes, dude, everywhere I go, I smell like weed. He goes, I don't even smoke weed. He goes, I don't even smoke weed. Everybody's like, hey, Rock, you smell like weed. He goes, I can't go in places. I'm like, well, take your ass out, motherfucker, because I ain't gonna stop smoking. So yeah.
That's great.
Awesome story.
Godfather, did you think at this point, and of course you were just, doing as they told you, but did you think having past personas that this was the one that was going to stick, or did it not really, it didn't really come to your mind?
Which one, Godfather?
I'm sorry, the Common Mustafa Nation of Domination.
No, because I knew what they were doing. Okay. And I knew at the end that everybody was going to be going their own way.
Okay.
And so me and my wife developed the Godfather. The WWE
awesome.
Had nothing whatsoever to do with the Godfather. That was all me and my wife's idea, and then me putting it into action one night when Jack Lanza was the agent, and I'm like, me and Bradshaw are wrestling each other in the popcorn match, and that's, if people don't know, that's the match after intermission. And that's one that kind of get people slowly back into the seat. So it's usually not a really important match.
I've never heard that term.
That's why it's called popcorn matches.
Yeah.
Right after intermission. That way,
right after they get their pop,
start getting back in the seats, right? And so we were on popcorn match, and me and John are beating the hell out of each other for 10 minutes, and people are sitting on their hands. They don't even care. So out of that, one day we tried the gimmick, and it was kind of involved into it itself, but we tried it out on stage, and it went over so well that the next day Jack's like, hey, can you do that again? And I'm like, okay. And then by the time I got to TV, Vince told me, he says, Charles, can you any way you can get some girls? And I'm like, I'm joking, can you get some girls? So me, Taker, and the Harris twins, we went to the local strip club that we were probably at the night before, and we went and got some girls. We put it on TV, and from the time it hit TV, it got over like Rover, man. It was over right away. It was it was soon as it hit TV, it was over. And Vince thought it had some legs, and I knew. Well, Vince told me, he says, "You got something there, Charles." He goes, "I think you got some legs," and then. He had some anyway. And so I knew that was it. I knew that after the Godfather, I was done.
Right. It was just so much of you in it, right? I mean, why wouldn't it stay? How could you change after that, right? Yeah.
Oh, that's why you say when we get into the Goodfather. It's just, I used to be a really mean, I know it's hard to tell now, but because I'm older, but up until my 30s, I was really mean. I mean, you don't, like I said, when black people weren't getting tattooed, you don't get all this work done with your whole back and body. And, I was really mean.
Right.
And I tried marijuana when I was going through a divorce. What happened to Papa Shango was I was going through a divorce and I became that mean. Everybody calls me Bear. Everybody in Vegas calls me Bear. And then that Bear came out, and then Undertaker and Vince were like, hey, you might need to go home for a while because that mean person came back out. So when I was home, I tried marijuana for the first time at 27 years old. I tried marijuana for the first time. And since that time, it completely changed my life. I got off of pills. I got off of alcohol. To this day, Aleve is about the hardest thing I'll take in vitamins. I don't take any pain pills. I'll have a shot or a drink every now and then, but I don't really drink. But it's cannabis, and I think cannabis saved my life. And I think that cannabis is why that I look the way that I do, is because of cannabis. Because there's a lot more to cannabis than just getting high, believe it or not. There's a lot of good in it too, and I'm living proof, man. And most of the guys my age, man, are all beat up. And I've been through tables, I've been hit over chairs, I've been through all that shit too. Okay. Worst I have is a little arthritis in my knees, and I think that was something I didn't tell you. I used to race dirt bikes. But I think that's where I got my bad knees is from there, because after wrestling, I did like 6-7 years of serious dirt bike riding. But it's just I start talking, I forget about the question. I didn't know what it was.
It's all right. No, it's all good stuff. You're a very entertaining guy.
But that was the thing, is now when I started smoking and I met my wife, who I've been married to for 20 years, it made me a nicer person. And it was like, I always compare it to George Foreman. George Foreman never made no money until he started being a nicer person and let people like him. And so I just, this is who I am now. I've been this way for 25 years or so. And it's just good because I'm a happier person. It was nice to be able to be myself on TV and not be scripted at all. I was never, ever scripted at all. I had free range to do or say whatever I wanted to say. Is that crazy?
No, that's fantastic. It puts you above a lot of guys who, maybe got stunted by that.
They didn't know what for me to say. You got a pimp out there talking about giving away hoes and smoking weed. They didn't know what to say.
No, that's great. And I want to get into that because it's so interesting that you came up with that with your wife. Dashing, tell me about your mentality as a performer. What have you learned, tactics inside or outside of the ring in these 8 years? I know you mentioned that you like to stay out of locker room politics. That was one thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Over the years, I just one of those things. It's and you're hitting it on. Godfather basically hit it. When you know your character, you're having fun. You know what you're there to do. That's what you got to do. I keep my head down. I show up. I do what I'm supposed to do. You want me to go a couple of minutes on the card, cut a promo, that's what I'm going to do. The bell rings. I did my job. I shake my hands. Tell everybody I appreciate, giving me the time, the investment to actually do what I do what I love. They like what I did, look for some feedback. I'm ready to go home after. There's nothing else for me to do unless you need me to help out with something else. It's something to be able to have the freedom of treating a business like a job and loving what you do and being able to have that fun in doing it. And when you get into the politics, you can't really do it that way, because you got to worry about, am I going to mess with this person? You got to mess with that person. And, outside of wrestling, a lot of people, a lot of my friends will probably tell you I'm one of the more genuine people that you'll meet. And I try to keep that in the ring. I want to be respectable to whoever I'm working with. I want to be respectable to everybody I'm going to deal with, and just kind of get that in return by actually being a decent human being and not getting into anything else. One of the things that I've probably say has been the best thing about learning is staying humble. Staying humble is probably the number one thing I've picked up. It's the number one thing that kind of keeps me to be motivated. Like we spoke on the phone before, I keep it in my mind. I'm always training. I'm always learning. I'm always growing. As long as I can keep myself there, there's nothing to block me from growing or getting better, Right. And that's the mindset I want to keep with it. That's the mindset I think has been working best for me. And, where Godfather, you found marijuana to cool you out and keep you chill. I got my video games, and, every now and then I pick up the Bible and really dive into that. And, because you gotta have your outlets and find your balance.
Yes, you do. That's well spoken. Well spoken. Yes, you do.
Really?
Yeah. So with that being the
my
thing,
outlet used to be strip clubs till 3 a.m.
Exactly. And I've had my share of those too. I've had my share of those
like you
too.
talked about the video games. See, back in the day when we were there wasn't no video games. There wasn't no cell phones. There wasn't no internet. There wasn't no social media. There was none of that. Beepers, at the beginning of my career, beepers had just come out. And then they started having the big brick, you know what I mean? So we didn't have to deal with any of that. And so, we didn't play Nintendo or none of that stuff. We were in strip clubs every night. I mean, just about everybody. I don't think it's like that anymore. I wouldn't think so.
What do you think, Dashing? Do you see any similarities? Or
oh yeah, no, there's still some. I mean, it's not. I don't know. I mean, I can't speak to what's probably going on in quote unquote the big leagues. But I know in the indie scene, you still get a lot of this stuff. There's some groups, they're much more rowdier. Right after the show, we're going to eat, we're going to bars, we're spending time, like you said, in the strip clubs, closing them down, or just, trying to unwind after a show, having a good time. Dash and D loves that lifestyle. Dash and D loves to be there, have the ladies around him and stuff like that. But then there's me on the side that, after a point, there's only but so much I can do with it. I'd rather have a little stability, not really spend my money. I don't want to pay for the things I can see for free. You know what I'm saying? So to that extent, it's good when it's there and it's fun, but when it becomes a thing where, some guys, they get caught up into it and that's all they're doing. It's not fun anymore. And when it's not fun, that's when you want to take a step back.
It's just a different time. See, back then, like I said, just about the whole card would go because that's just what you did. And all strip clubs had food and they treated you nice and they gave you free drinks. And that's just what we did. And it wasn't like we weren't just going there for it. It was just what we did. But like that was the thing of the time back then. It's a lot different time now. So
yeah.
I mean, but you might not hang out with everybody, but the whole card would be there. But that was just like now, instead of going down to the lobby bar, everybody went to the strip club. It's just where you went.
Gotcha.
And also, that's where I felt most at home.
And speaking of, backstage, we can't not go over the BSK, right? From one of the OG members, I believe. Can you talk about that a little bit before we get into the Godfather and the BSK? Yeah, I don't want to.
Who do you think taught all them how to play dominoes? Well, I shouldn't say that. Yoko could play. Rikishi, I shouldn't say. Rikishi, Yoko, and Savio could play dominoes. I taught all the white guys how to play dominoes.
Savio's actually a really good domino player.
Yes, he is.
I saw it in action.
It was a great group. We were a group of guys that hung out together, and it was at TV. Me and Taker and Yoko, we more were the guys that would go to the strip clubs every night. Rikishi now and then, Sabio every now and then, the Goblins every now and then. But me, Yoko, and Taker every night. But BSK was more at TV because you had to be at TV at 1 o'clock, and either Taker or Yoko, one of them was going to be on the very last match, and we all rode together. So you're there all day. Right. And you have a lot of downtime back then. So we played dominoes on our downtime. And it was, people think it's Undertaker. It was Yoko who started BSK. Because Yoko.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yoko was, hey, BSK. Everybody, BSK. BSK. Let's boom, BSK. And then everybody would get together. And then that's where we did most of our hanging out. BSK at night was me, Yoko, and Taker.
Nice.
That's awesome. Any stories that we haven't heard on the last ride about you and Taker or BSK that you care to share?
You know what? Let me ask you a question. What do you think about the Take the Hat story?
That's an incredible story. It's like so over the top. You know, I was watching and it just kept getting crazier and crazier. It was going downhill. The door is what got me. When he says I headbutted the door, I didn't even know why, you know that, but it was just so cool. Yeah.
You know what was so cool about that is I actually did that video in the club. It was over 2 years ago that I did that inside the club. And, you know, and you don't know who you're talking about because you'll see me pop up in different things. Okay. But it's just they ask you a bunch of questions. So they're like, hey, what we heard about a story of you and Taker in a hotel room. So now I don't know what Taker's saying or if Taker's even saying anything. I'm just answering the question. And what was so cool about it is as they're talking to him and talking to me, it's the exact same story because it happened exactly like that. And at the very end, he goes, well, you had to kind of be there. He goes, we had a lot of nights like that. It was just a typical night with us, a typical night. That's how we were doing it, man. But everything, it was just, dude, that was such a fun time. Yeah. But like I said, there was no social media back then. So that nobody was taking pictures of you. There's no phones of people, you know. So you could get away with a lot of stuff. You couldn't get away with that data stuff we were doing. But that story is so funny because it's so true. And I say at the end, but he took the hat. That's right. He took the hat.
Does he still have that hat? He still has that hat, I'm assuming, right? He's got to. I don't think we saw it.
I've been wearing these hats forever, even before I was the Godfather. And this hat is called the Godfather. You know, if you take it off and I show you, it says Godfather in it. It's not because I put it in there. It's the style of hat.
Okay.
And so I had bought one Godfather style riverboat Stetson where it was flat on the top, but look basically like this, but flat on the top. And I bought it, and then I'd given it to him that night. And we used to give each other stuff back and forth, Rolexes, leather coats, all types of stuff. We usually give it back to each other. And so
that's nice.
It's so funny because I was so determined. And we're drunk, we're having fun. I was so determined he was going to take that. I don't care if you are the Undertaker. I don't care. You're taking the goddamn hat.
Right.
And that's what started it. And me and Mark, it's just, I go on and on. You got to stop me because we used to just, one night we decided that we're going to stop beating on each other because we would beat on each other like that every night. Hip toss. We'd be in a club, call a hip toss. And I'd run at him, and he'd hip toss me, and then I'd pick him up and slam him. I mean, it was a crazy life back then, man. That's why I was like, I was having fun.
Yeah, that's incredible. What are your thoughts on him retiring?
Has he retired yet? Maybe that's some bitch have a lifetime contract. How's he going to retire?
That's what the big rumor is that Last Ride documentary was kind of like the last ride. You know,
knowing him the way that I do. He probably would have retired a long time ago, but they just won't let him.
Right.
They just won't let him.
So we got to keep our eyes open, definitely, for another appearance. Can you talk a little bit about now the creation of The Godfather? You said you created it with your wife. What was that night like when you guys?
They were at this point now. The Rock is taking over the nation, and Mark Henry's in the nation now. and D'Lo and Mark were doing tag teams, and Rock was doing his thing, and I wasn't really doing anything. So I'm like, I was having fun, so I wanted to stick around, and my contract was coming up, and I'm like, I got to come up with something. And so I started growing my hair. I mean, my hair to this day still grows fast. I started growing my hair, and I always wore the hats, and I looked more bikerish, so I'd have a black leather vest, which was the pattern for the vest that I used to wear. I'd have on black pants, black Magnum boots, but I'd have silver on, a lot of silver. I used to love to wear silver. And then as I was growing my hair, not really doing anything, people started in the audience saying, I'm just hanging out at the ring. I'm not wrestling. We're just walking people to the ring. They're like, you look like a pimp. You look like a pimp. So me and my wife started talking about it. She's like, baby. And I hated pimps, man. Believe me, I hated pimps. I've been working in strip clubs all my life. Hated to beat pimps up all my life. And so we started talking, and she came up. She's like, honey, you got to do this. And basically everything that she wanted me to do that I didn't want to do, I didn't want to wear color. I only wanted to wear black. I didn't want to put a feather in my hat. I didn't want to wear yellow pants. I didn't want to do anything she told me to do. Well, everything she told me to do worked. Only thing I did was perform. The clothes, the outfits, the jewelry, the hats, the fur coats, my wife did all of that. She hired a full-time seamstress that made the vest. She had another lady that made the fur coats. We had a jeweler that was making us jewelry. All I did was come home, relax for a couple of days, smoke for a couple of days, go back on the road and entertain them. And that's all I was doing, was entertaining them, unscripted entertainment. I am a type of guy that you're better off, just like I said, giving me the mic and let me do my thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I would do. No prep, nothing, just boom, walk out there and say, I used to wrestle guys and wouldn't even talk to them. I mean, they knew the finish, and then they knew the finish, and they knew the beginning. I wouldn't even talk to them. And they're like, well, what are you going to do out there? I'm like, you'll find out there. And you had no idea. And I would keep it a little personal to where they'd be like, oh, shit, I don't believe you just said that. And that gimmick was so fun, man. But all my wife's idea, it was I just did the entertaining part. And that was just me being the person that I was, that I have been probably for the last 20 years.
Right. That's so cool she was able to put that together for you. And last question about The Godfather. Is it true that you were toned down when you first debuted? Like they had to tone the Godfather character down?
No.
No, they didn't?
They never toned me down until the end, until just before I when I came Goodfather is when they toned me down. But no.
Okay.
At the very end, it became to a point where I couldn't be on the weekends in the mornings. I could only be on after 10 o'clock at night. It became like that. But Vince used to tell me, Charles, I'm fighting for you, because at that time, the DX Sucket was getting attacked, the Puppies, Val Venus. They had gone from, cable to network, different sponsors, went public, things changed. And so when it came to me, they were really after me. And he used to say, I'm fighting for you, Charles, I'm fighting for you. And then finally, I couldn't call myself a pimp. I couldn't call them hoes. I couldn't, So he put me as a Goodfather.
Yeah. Wow. And Dashing, what do you see for the future of Dashing D000? Real open question.
It's one of those things where I got a lot of aspirations, so I only see big things. But I don't know what the future holds. I just plan to show up and be there and do my best. That's kind of the idea of it for myself. I can say, I have a quote.
Let's hear it.
This is directly from my sister. A lot of people say sky is the limit, but it's only the viewpoint. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where, I can keep going as far as it goes and as far as I can go, it's what I can see. And I still see a lot more past what the sky would be. So it's rocket to the wheels fall off, man. This is what it's gonna be. You know, I'm gonna get, if it's championships, contracts, this company, that company, come with me, man. I'm here for all of it. You know, I'm gonna hustle it to the day I die, and that's just what it's gonna be.
That's a great attitude.
That's
great
awesome. Attitude. And last two quick questions for Godfather. First, how was it getting inducted in the Hall of Fame? And can you tell us about what does an after party consist of for the Godfather, with as much details as you could share for something as big as the Hall of Fame?
I had my whole family there, so
yeah.
To be honest, I hung out with Snoop a little earlier, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah.
And but that night, it was my family was there, and we went out to dinner. And
That's great.
it was no big party night for me that night.
No, I understand.
But it was an honor, man. I never thought they'd put me. I thought if they ever put me in the Hall of Fame, they'd have to put some type of special entertainment category. But then, I mean, if you really, I know a lot of people think you deserve it, don't deserve it. I don't really care about any of that. But this is what I have to say.
Let's hear it.
To this day, Papa Shango, Kama Mustafa, the Godfather, it's been 20 years since I've been on TV, and people still remember me. People still ask for me. I'm still under a merchandise contract. And there's very few wrestlers that 20 years, 25 years after they're done, people are still talking about them, and they're still making their action figures. So in that respect, my body of work for the characters that I had, I did a hell of a job. And as Godfather, I made him a lot of money. So I think, I deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and you're the only person right now, speaking of the merchandise, with certified marijuana on the merchandise, right?
That's right. What a great! Could you imagine doing that now? Oh my God! No. I had shirts that say "Don't say no," or "Don't say no," say ho, or don't whatever. I take the hoes and "Don't say ho," say ho, and Pippin Ain't Easy and Rollin' Betty. I had a shirt that said "Godfather loves skinny women, but will never say no to a fatty." I mean,
I saw that shirt.
So different time, but I mean, it was legendary characters, and to this day, like right now, it's no longer the Hope Train; it's the Smoke Train.
The Smoke Train. Can you tell us about that a little bit? The Smoke Train. What's going on now?
This is my brand. This is my new brand. I'm very involved in the cannabis industry. I try to go the product route, but I've lost so much money. I'm more of an influencer now, where if I believe in your product, I'll advertise your product on TV. You will see this logo on some things. I am going to start my own little podcast show. I don't know if it's going to be called a podcast or more of a just Smoke with the Godfather on the Smoke Train episode. But I'm working on all that right now. I just, like I said, I got all the rights to everything. So you'll see me popping up more. And of course, once the world opens back up, I'll be doing some more of the wrestling conventions and stuff. But right now, I'm doing a lot of virtual stuff. Stuff, which is kind of cool because, you know, I did one yesterday where I probably signed 200 items, but I got to talk to the 200 people. So it was almost like being there. And it's pretty cool, you know, without actually being there. So I've got one this weekend in New Jersey. I have one the next weekend in New Jersey. So it's pretty cool, man. So I'm basically retired now. So I'm having the time of my life, making a little change, doing a little stuff. But believe me, I'm having the time of my life.
That's so cool. We're really, really happy to hear that. I'm glad we'll be seeing you pop up all over the place soon. When this opens back up. And final question: do you have any advice for Dashing D000 moving forward in his career?
Hey, Dashing D seems to have his shit together, bro. I mean, everything he said, I'm shaking my head like, yeah, you're right. Yep, you got it right. You're right. So he's on the right track. He just needs to get that break. It's a lot harder these days because there's just so many wrestlers, man. And when I came in, it was like being black helped me because there was no black wrestlers. And it wasn't because they didn't want them. It was because black people weren't really into wrestling at that time or becoming wrestlers. Okay. So it's a little harder now, but you know, you keep working hard. He's got the right frame of mind, man. He's got his head on straight. So, you know, I hope he gets that break.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Likewise.
as do we. Well, thank you both so much for being on. That'll be it for the show, and I appreciate it so much. This was a fantastic episode, Godfather. As always, a pleasure, and Dashing D, you too.
Likewise.
Dash,
thank you guys.
It's been a pleasure, man. I had a good time. Good time.
Likewise.
Good
Definitely
pleasure,
gonna.
too.
Woo, Messy Daddy, boogie woogie man feel good. I tell my people, my brothers and sisters, don't you dare miss online. Rewind, recap, relive. Oh yeah.